Welcome to another spot interview of NeverEndingPanel.com. We have a special guest tonight, Brandon Sanderson, who is the author of best-selling New York Times best-selling author of the Mistborn trilogy, and as a result of that book was asked to finish off the Robert Jordan Wheel of Time series. So we want to talk to Brandon not only about Mistborn and how that came about, but also about how he was chosen to finish off the very popular and very much beloved series of Wheel of Time. So why don't you give us a little bit about the background about how this all came to be?
I was already an author. I was, as you mentioned, the Mistborn trilogy. I was 2 books into that, and just got up one morning, checked my voicemail, and there's a phone call from Harriet Rigney, who is Robert Jordan's wife and editor. I don't know if you know the story, but she actually discovered him as an editor and then married him.
I did not know that.
She was one of the big editors at Tor. She'd edited Ender's Game, among other things, and then had gone to part-time and moved to Charleston and met him there. Anyway, she calls me up on the phone. This is several weeks after Robert Jordan's passing, which had been quite a shock to us as fans. I didn't know that I was even being considered, and it turns out that I had been recommended to her by several sources, and she had read a eulogy I'd written for Robert Jordan on my website, and so she called me up and she just asked me, hey, just wondering, would you be interested in finishing the Wheel of Time? Which about, knocked me over.
Could you be God for a while?
Yeah.
I found Tolkien's unfinished manuscript.
Yeah.
Would you mind just taking a crack at it?
Yeah, that actually happened to Guy Gavriel Kay. I don't know if you know this, but he worked on the Silmarillion. He's a fantasy writer, a fairly prestigious one right now, but the story I hear, he was just roommates with Christopher Tolkien. It's like, hey, we're thinking of putting out one of my dad's manuscripts. Are you interested? I know you're a writer.
Location.
Yeah. But no, she called me and she asked if I was interested. And
Dude, how do you feel when somebody says, would you mind finishing the Wheel of Time?
Yeah. I really didn't know how to respond. I was completely tongue-tied. Because on one hand, one of the reasons she called me is I'd been reading the books for a long time. I picked the first one up when I was 14. I was very familiar with the books. She also read Mistborn, the first book of the trilogy, and really liked it, thought I was a good match. And so those two things, were a good mix. But at the same time, I was familiar enough with the series and with the fandom to know that this was a big project with a lot of people.
Expectation.
A lot of expectation. And I did say yes, and then after I did, I was talking to a fantasy writer. It was Lee Modisett, and he came up to me and he says, Brandon, you realize that you can't win. Because if it turns out really well, it'll be because of Robert Jordan. And if it turns out really poorly, it'll be because of you. So there's no way to win this. But
are you worried about the typecasting trap also? If it does turn out really well...
It did turn out really well.
Yeah,
aren't you going to be pressured? Sorry.
It'd be Dan Brown.
Aren't you going to be... Don't you have now pressure to continue being Robert Jordan, as it were?
Well, there is a little bit of that.
We like what you did before, man, but do another Jordan book.
One nice thing is that is Robert Jordan had said this is the end, and that the end is coming. And I've talked to Harriet, and there's not really a feel there that she wants to keep the Wheel of Time going. She wants it to end. I've said before, I wrote a blog post once where fans were saying, are you going to do more? Are you going to do more? And I said, the beauty in a piece of art is often in its conclusion. The fact that there is an ending here. And so I'm not really worried about that because I know we're not going to do more. I know Harriet's not interested in doing more. There are a few other little Wheel of Time projects that she's considering. She's got an encyclopedia she's doing, and there were a few of his unfinished manuscripts. But there is a definite end, and so I'm not worried about that really.
And you said Robert had already put an end in that
yes,
he had foreseen.
He wrote the end of the series himself before he passed away. I'm working from an outline which has plenty of holes in it and lots of work for me to do, but the really nice thing is that he finished it. He went and he actually wrote the last scenes. So that's one good thing. And I really do like these books. I've been reading these books since I was 14. The characters in them are like, my good buddies from high school and stuff like that. And so that was actually a bigger deal then will I get typecast, or what's going to happen? Are the fans going to tear my house down? Was the opportunity to actually be part of this? It's,
so there's a mob at the door. What? A mob at the door.
Yeah. You know how I tell the story. I don't know if you guys know this, but the sixth Star Trek movie, right? The sixth Star Trek movie was being filmed, and a big actor, I think it was Christian Slater, came to the director and said, "Hey, can I have a bit part? Can I appear in this?" And they actually put him in just using his voice shadowed. No one knows. It's one of those cameo things. And Lord of the Rings, you had people wanting to do cameos and get dressed up as orcs to die just to be part of Lord of the Rings.
Sam Jackson wanted to be in Jedi Knight.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's this sort of being part of something that you've loved for so long, and this is the ultimate opportunity to do that. And so that outweighed all other considerations, the chance to actually be part of this.
Have you found in the reviews from the fans and from the trade that people are saying, "Well, that's Sanderson's voice and that's Jordan's voice"?
Yep, they are.
So,
they are
okay,
definitely.
So they're doing it. Okay.
They are doing that. Though they get it wrong as often as they get it right, which is kind of interesting because there are actual scenes
The famous Picasso.
that he wrote. Yeah, that we put in. So.
And they're saying, "Oh, that's definitely Sanderson," and you're like, "Well, no, Jordan actually wrote that."
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That's pretty funny.
You know the thing about Picasso? They gave pictures to Picasso, asking if he drew the pictures, if he was the artist of the pictures, and if he didn't like it, he'd say no, and if he liked it, he'd say yes and sign it.
Well, one of the fun things that happened here is a lot of so there was some buzz right after the book came out where people were like, "Oh, the chapter titles are all wrong." I can tell because all the chapters are named in each of the books.
Right.
Well, what they don't know is in all of the Wheel of Time books, Harriet's named all the chapters, and in mine, she named all the chapters, and so they're like, obviously someone's been, Sanderson did this differently. Well, actually, that was still Harriet. Robert Jordan never did those.
Did she edit yours?
She edited, yes.
She edited it?
Yep, she did.
So effectively, same concept, same outline, same editing.
Well, yeah, I talk about it kind of, I wrote an introduction to the book where I said, envision it as same actors, same script, new director is really what's happened. You will be able to tell that something is a little bit different.
Even the same producer to a certain degree.
But you got the same, everything's the same, but the director's
very good
been changed. And, Harriet's there smoothing it out, making sure the language all feels right. And, I'm a different person than Robert Jordan. I can't replace them. I've never claimed to be able to replace him. But at the same time, I think that enough of these pieces are aligned that once people get into it, my main focus has been getting the voices of the characters right. And once you get into it, the characters are still themselves. People have noticed that, and that's been the best praise I've gotten.
So in our final minute, I'd like to know, what are you working on? Pushing away from Robert Jordan. What's Brandon Sanderson working on next?
I have a book called The Way of Kings coming out August 31st, which we're very excited about. It's kind of my baby that I've been working on for over a decade, nurturing and building and all this stuff. It's
that you had to put on hold.
That I had to put on hold for quite a while, and I wasn't ready for it at certain parts of my career, and then I had any other things to do. Anyway, I finally have been able to get this book and release it, and I'm really excited about it. August 31st. It's the beginning of a large epic of my own.
And it's coming out with who?
It's Tor.
It's coming out with Tor, and it's part of a series.
It's part of the series.
You can go to Tor.com.
Yep.
Do you have your own website too, where people can read about it?
BrandonSanderson.com.
BrandonSanderson.com.
Yeah. And on BrandonSanderson.com, I actually have a free ebook people can download. It's called Warbreaker.
Fantastic.
It's my latest, the book I released last year. You can download the whole thing and read it for free.
Fantastic. Brandon Sanderson, thank you for being on NeverEndingPanel.com. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.